welcome to Waxing About WestWorld, the show that dissects the living hell out of HBO's amazing new show, WestWorld. I am your host, Unnecessarily Analytical, and today I'm going to dive deep into Season 1, Episode 1, entitled The Original. Now, before I get started, it's here that I would like to take a moment and mention that it takes me a very long time to write out these episodes, and hopefully in a moment you'll actually see why. And that's one of the reasons why I'm just so far behind the curve. Now, for the most part, I'll be approaching these episodes using only my original notes when I first watched the episode, and I'll expand past that as need be, but never in a spoiler kind of way. I will try to keep them as self-contained as I can. Now, I know these are long, but I hope you find them interesting, and now with that out of the way, let's start digging. First off, I think it's important to ask the question, why the Wild West? Out of all the time periods, out of all the locations, both fictional and non-fictional, why this one? Well, that is, I see that the Wild West as a dichotomous beast, so to speak. You know, the spirit of the Wild West is perfect for this type of an amusement park. You know, the danger, the dirt, the lawlessness, the double-edged sword of freedom, the itchy trigger finger just looking for a good scratching, you know, stuff like that. And yet, by its very nature, there's hope and a chance to forge one's own future and start anew and have an optimistic tomorrow. It was these unbridled forces that propelled people westward and let them stake their claim. It's both poetic and romantic, and it builds into a lot of latitude for not only plot development, but also for story flexibility. You know, and that's not even to mention what it does for atmosphere and tone and everything else that would go along with it. In the beginning of the episode, we are greeted by Bernard's voice, played by Jeffrey Wright, and we also see Dolores, who is played by Yvonne Rachel Wood, sitting alone, naked, and motionless. We can see that Bernard is not in the room with her, so we are left wondering where that voice is coming from. This is really a big put a pin in that shit kind of moment, because I promise we will get back to that. We can also see that she is surrounded by darkness, and as if this scene were not unnerving enough, we have to watch as a fly runs over her eye. Now, I don't know about you, but that made me want to rub my eyes. It was actually far more disturbing than what I thought it was going to be. So let's get past that. So after the icky fly moment, we hear Bernard command Dolores to come back online. Now, this bit of dialogue is really important because it will have significance at the end of the episode, so I'm really not going to burn a lot of time on it here because I will bang the shit out of it later on. What is important in this moment is that Dolores chooses to see the beauty in her world and that she was enshrouded by darkness with a light affixed on her. And again, we're going to get more into that later on. We then jump cut to her laying in bed as if she was almost placed there like a doll, you know, just carefully placed in its bed, like with even the attention taken to the hair. It looks so scripted and ideal, really. We get a sense of perfection in the stillness. And even when she wakes up, her face instantly turns to the light. Dolores will always be looking towards the light first and greet it with almost a modest smile, as if to indicate that's her purpose and what she contains as a character. We watch as Dolores makes her way down the stairs and then outside. Here again, we will see her going from a place that is darker into a much brighter location. This theme will be repeated a lot. So with that, I will just start to point it out, and then I'm just going to move on since I feel that the symbolism behind it has already been well established. Dolores walks outside and greets her father. She is wearing her signature blue dress and a huge smile. Now her father, Peter, who is actually played by the rugged Louis Hertham, quick interjection by the way, keep your eye on him because this man owns this role. I mean, all the actors here are phenomenal, and they are setting the bar so high. But I find him in this role especially is actually pretty amazing, especially as we go later on. So back to Dolores and her father. They have a quick, quaint back and forth where Peter asks her if she's going to.
You headed out to set down some of this natural splendor?
Between this statement and her carrying a portable easel, we can see that there is this artistic side to her, a side that focuses on beautiful things, and then by painting them, she can then share that beauty that she sees with others. Truly a kind, unselfish, and nurturing spirit rests inside of her. She then replies with,
"Hello, mate."
And she looks so beautiful here. Again, it looks as if this moment was sculpted just for aesthetic perfection. the beautiful light being cast upon her and the porch, her flawless makeup and hair. I mean, everything about it. This scene easily sets the expectation of the viewer for the rest of the show. During Dolores' soliloquy, we fly over a mountainous terrain to travel into a different location. This transition is aided by a close-up of the player piano, a machine playing something familiar, just like the hosts are machines of sorts, and playing the familiar role of a human. We then cut to the train car. As the camera pulls away from the man blankly staring out the window, there are two men talking with one another. This is where we're introduced to the white hat v black hat based dichotomy of WestWorld, that there is basically two paths that one can take initially when they come to WestWorld. White being, the good, and the black hats, aka the bad guys. If you are looking for the ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you have to look no further than the cast of Stranger Things. That's right, I said it. Anyway, the man references how he was black hat and it was the best 2 weeks of his life. This tells us that the park offers something that one couldn't find anywhere else, and that is sometimes people just need a release. That ability to let everything out of the box and shake it out and let it move around a little bit before it gets stuffed back inside. It's a side of themselves that they don't feel comfortable letting loose in their daily lives. For some of it, it's their adventure side. Some people, it's their sexy side, or, in this case, for him, it was his evil side. I think this is something that everyone can relate to, and by having this moment in the very beginning of the show, it is giving us, the viewer, the permission to let go of the atypical moral shackles that bind us, that we can vicariously enjoy the freedom and the exploration of self through the guests at this park. By this small sliver of dialogue, we are introduced to the subtle process of melding us, the viewer, into the frame of mind of being a guest at WestWorld. This is cemented by Dolores' statement
that at one point or another, we were all new to this world.
And then she enables us as the viewer to relax and embrace what is about to happen simply by saying,
The newcomers are just looking for the same thing we are. A place to be free, to stake out our dreams. A place with unlimited possibilities.
We now see an old school coal-burning steam engine pull into the station. Here I think it is important to point out that the train car is named Black Rider. I believe that this name is done on purpose for the reason of foreshadowing just for Teddy. Now, side note number one, just in case anybody is curious about the most subtle character of WestWorld, and by which I mean that is the player piano, its name is Bowen. Well, the manufacturer is Boeing. As for the piano's official name, I have no idea. But I do think it is a great idea if somebody were to add that to the IMDb cast and crew page. Anyway, right away, my eye is drawn to the unusual mechanics on the right-hand side. Those cool little flappy things? Well, they're actually part of something known as the wind motor. It is a way of regulating pacing in the piano by powering an internal device called the tempo control box. Now, if you're kind of nerdy and you want more information on how this whole thing works, you can go to player-care.com/mybook.html for more information, along with the schematics of how this whole thing works. If I actually recommend that you kind of go and check it out. I'll actually put the link in the description here as well. It's actually really fascinating and a beautiful piece of mechanics. I love how they selected the player piano, not just because it was historically accurate, but there is a parallel between the breath of life that powers us and the breath of life that animates this piano. This can be extrapolated to the hosts. Somewhere in their construction, there was a breath of life moment for them that finally separated them from being nothing more than a series of mechanics and electronics into something a bit more nebulous. Not quite man, not quite machine. Something in this gray area, and it all had to start essentially with that one breath. Now, going back to my side note one, this is a subsection A, right? So I'm not gonna draw many comparisons between this series and the original show. I think they're in two different leagues, but they're both excellent in what they do. The original had very striking visuals, and it was very stylized, and it was actually very unique in its aesthetics, especially for the time that it came out. Now, I'm gonna throw in a couple of little things here that I think are kind of important that kind of relate to the original movie and the series, which is the company that owns WestWorld or runs it or manages it or however you want to look at it. They're Delos, D-E-L-O-S. Well, if you spell that backwards, it's sold. And that's actually SOLED, so to put on a new sole of a shoe. So, put a soul in the body, or essentially to re-ghost the machine, right? Or, Delos could actually be looked at as a wink and a nod to the name of Dolores, indicating that Dolores has a far pivotal role in this park, and that we should really pay attention to her because she is going to be the key to almost everything. With the arrival of the newcomers, we get a clue about the cost of this vacation spot when the two newcomers get off the train and say,
"Oh God, it's incredible."
Better be for what we're paying.
So we know this ship must be expensive. That's all I'm saying. Actually, we get a number later on, but for right now, all you need to know is that this shit is spendy, right? So this actually forked a question in my mind right away, is that, is this WestWorld modeled after our reality's 1880s, or is it just kind of loosely based off it to grant more flexibility, not just for the story writers themselves, but, to the newcomers, as characters as well. I really don't know. I'm kind of hoping it would be great if they actually stuck to the 1880s of our time, because that'll just help with the immersion, and adds a little bit of glue between reality and fantasy for us to actually enjoy. We see the man that was staring out the window. His name is Teddy Flood. Now, he is embodied by James Marsden. You may have recognized him as Cyclops, right? We're going to forget that role because he is far better here than what he ever was previously. He's really stepped up his acting game, and I love him in this role. And I also think it's important to note that, he is wearing a black hat, and by doing so, he is declaring to us that he is not on the side of the angels here. But to be fair, I have not witnessed anything that would lead me to believe that he is taking a more sinister path. I also believe that this ties into the name of the car that he was riding in, the Black Rider. The whole thing just the whole car just may have been named like Foreshadowing instead of Black Rider, right? And to me, it sticks out that far. We follow Teddy through the town and we get an introduction to Hector Escaton, who will be played eventually by Rodrigo Santoro. Now, Hector is a wanted man by the sheriff who's standing right about meow, and he's actually played by Brian Howe, or Howie. I'm really not sure how to pronounce his last name. That's going to be a kind of a reoccurring theme as well with some of these actors, so if I slaughter the names, I apologize well in advance. The sheriff attempts to recruit Teddy as he walks by for the Hector Escaton side mission, right? But Teddy just kind of shines him on. Now, there's a lot of elements to Westworld that feel very much like an RPG, and this is really our first induction into the game aspect of this incredible and wonderfully complicated place. And, just don't let the simple style and ways of this world fool you, because there is a lot going on here, and on many, many different levels. It is important to remember this scene with Teddy and the Mariposa bartender, played by Bradley Fisher, and Bradley Fisher's bitchin' mustache, because this will also come up later on in the episode. So if you still have your pins out from the last time, just slap another one on here on this moment, because I will be coming back to this much later on. Back to the scene at hand, Teddy is an outsider, and therefore he is not trustworthy by default. And this is going to be demonstrated here when Teddy just tries to order a rye of whiskey, and the bartender doesn't really seem to be all that eager to oblige him. So Teddy has to get a little assertive, right? That is very similar to how anyone would have acted in the Wild West to any outsider. One would have had to fight for themselves and stick to their guns. All right, pun partially intended. Moving on. It also shows that there is a conflict everywhere, that nothing comes easy in the Wild West or in Westworld. Even something as simple as ordering a drink at a bar becomes its own version of a nightmare or a hassle, or comes with its own version of static. Now Clementine Pennyfeather, portrayed by the lovely Angela Serafan, I hope that's her last name, walks up to Teddy to greet him. We get to hear her signature line, which is,
You're new. Not much of a brand on you.
and Teddy just shirks off her advances. Now, why would a man turn down such a beautiful woman who is just coming on to him? Well, the reason he gives us actually tells us a lot about Teddy. He's actually looking for love, for the one. And he really wants more than just mere satisfactions of the flesh. He's actually looking for a depth in his relationships. He wants to have the happy life where he's free to live how he wants with the one that he really loves, right? And I feel this is almost a universal. And by adding it here, it not only adds a bit of backstory to the character, I also feel that it adds a lot of depth to it as well. You know, it ties essentially a gossamer string between our reality and our concept of self and the world of Westworld and the characters that it contains within. This is when Maeve, who is played wonderfully by Thandie Newton, who delivers one of the best lines in this series. I love it. I love it every time I hear it. And that is,
Well, you're always paying for it, darling. The difference is our costs are fixed and posted right there on the door.
this is actually a really important statement, but probably for a different reason than what most people might think or want to jump to. What's happening here is that she's actually showing that there is a level of honesty here, that Maeve is very aware of what it is that she does and doesn't take any shame from it. Rather, it actually kind of empowers her, and she actually kind of draws strength from that. And that in Westworld, you may be pretending to be a character, but you're free to be as honest with your actions as you possibly can be, when it comes into the regarding of your true nature. There's no need to apologize for who you are or what your interests are or what you're interested in or why you're even really there. No apologies are needed because you are there and you are able to be completely honest, not only with yourself, but also with the world around you. Now, I want to point out that Dolores is in a cornflower blue dress. This color will be repeated throughout the show, and it does actually have some significance. But for right now, I want to move on. So take another one of those pins, drop it right there, because I will address the brilliant and tactful use of color that this show uses a little later on. And then with that, side note number 2. In the original movie, I swear this is going to be one of the last times I address it. In the original movie, the newcomers were actually given badges to be placed on their jackets. They were also cornflower blue. Now, is it relevant? Nah, I just thought I'd point it out. I just thought it was kind of interesting. It may actually come true later on because tonight is the last episode that something actually is going down. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to move right on. When Bernard asks Dolores if she's noticed any loops in her day-to-day life, she replies with,
All lives have routine. Mine's no different.
I get the sense that this is a wink to the crowd, really, that Dolores is self-aware like a little bit, since she can actually see that she has some repetition in her life, but, kind of just chalks it up to any other life, really. Now, after Maeve rocks her line, Teddy actually catches a glimpse of Dolores and instantly pursues her. He actually walks with confidence and purpose towards her. He knows what he wants, and he will actually go and seek it out. So Dolores is clearly pleasantly surprised by Teddy, and his line,
Don't mind me. Just trying to look chivalrous.
and damn it, even I find him charming with that line delivery. Like, good on you, Mr. Martin. Good on you. So now that I have delivered a compliment, I do have to point out one thing here that kind of has I have a problem with, really, and that's when Teddy actually says,
Well, I have to fetch my horse.
"What horse, Teddy? You rode it on a train. Did you store your horse in the overhead bin? Is there like some sort of weird horse parking garage nearby that I didn't see? Just tell me how this works, Teddy, because I'm really dying to know, buddy." Anyway, moving on. The cinematography of these next shots explains a bit about Teddy and Dolores' relationship. They're riding through the landscape, and Teddy is always behind Dolores. She is the one in control, and she has the confidence where she is going, and Teddy will always be pursuing her. She has her eyes affixed out on the horizon, and Teddy's eyes are affixed on Dolores. Side note number 3. A Judas steer is a steer that has either been trained to lead or is just a natural leader of the pack, flock, gaggle, Joey, fuck it, whatever, herd. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, the rest of the herd instinctively follows the Judas steer. Now, Judas steers were used to help move cattle over vast differences back in the day. However, as towns and cities were created along with roads and automobiles and such, their role took kind of a much darker spin in history. And that was that the Judas steer was actually used to lead herds of cattle to slaughter. So I guess that's kind of a lesson not to always blindly follow, right? Um, when I mentioned the romantic aspect to the Wild West, I would like to point out in this side note, I guess you can say like side note 3, subsection A, that there were actually Western comics and songs and stories written about the power of the Judas steer. Now, it was typically comparing it to the seduction of a woman and how the man would follow her to the ends of the earth. And I actually find this to be a very beautiful parallel for Teddy and Dolores. After Dolores delivers a line that slightly disarms Teddy, he says,
You saying I'm predictable?
and I feel this statement is actually a declaration of commitment between Teddy and Dolores, because Dolores then delivers a very important line that tells us a lot about the future of their relationship.
There's a path for everyone. Your path leads you back to me. I know things will work out the way they're meant to.
A beautifully scripted line, almost bordering on Hallmark card kind of cheesy, but very apt to this scene and very important nonetheless. As Teddy and Dolores roll up to the farmhouse, the beautiful, rich, warm sunlight that had been washing over them, as if to reflect the warm, glowing moment between the two of them, has actually been replaced by pitch black darkness. It is through this simple change in time that we are prepared for what happens next. 2 gunshots ring out from Dolores' home. Teddy instantly rides into trouble, and to help keep Dolores safe, Teddy tells her to stay where she is. He knows that she will be out of harm's way, kind of for the most part, down away from the house. Now, here we're introduced to a character I believe is named Tenderloin, played by Jeff Daniel Phillips. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure if that's the character's name or not, because at the time of me writing this, his name has actually never formally been used. I'm just really kind of going off what I found on IMDb, and I just kind of lined up a picture, and it was the dude that kind of looked like him. So I'm hoping this is Tenderloin. If not, I will actually be making several mistake references in the near future. And with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and end it right here. This is going to be part 1 of a series. I went ahead and I broke these down into smaller segments because honestly 3 hours of audio to cut and edit with video I think would kill anybody's eyes and ears, especially with my shitty voice. So I'm going to try and trim these down to like 30 minutes each, and it should be a little bit easier to digest. And as always, please comment. I've really enjoyed the back and forth that I've had with people in the comment section. It's been a lot of fun, and I love the little things that get brought to the table. And there's actually been quite a few that I've actually had to stop and think and actually roll over. And there's actually quite a few of them that I feel are actually 100% right on the money. So it's actually been great. As I stated before, tonight is the last night. It's the last episode of WestWorld. I was going to do like a live cast of that. But I've already received 1 takedown notice just for having those stills of Westworld up. So I wasn't even going to risk it by doing that. So instead, what I'll do is I'll do what I did for episode 9, which is I'll just go ahead and I will give a brief synopsis. Maybe, I don't know. I kind of have to see what's going to go on with the episode. Maybe it will actually it'll be too huge that I can't sum it up in a quick video, that I'll actually have to break out a 3-hour-long video just to sum up the last episode. I don't know, but I'm eagerly looking at the clock, and it's only an hour away, so I absolutely cannot wait. It'll be a kind of a sad moment too, because this will be the end, and I've really enjoyed this show so much that I really kind of hate to see it end, at least for the season. And they did get cleared for a season 2. And honestly, I hope they take as much time as they need to keep the quality of the product as high and as amazing as it has been. It could not have been easy to bang out this storyline with all of its interwoven plot lines and all of the symbolism and try to tie it all together. And then you factor in different timelines and time skips. It had to be incredibly difficult. So I really, really, really hope that they take their time with the second season. If it takes them 2 years, I am totally cool with that. If it takes them 3 or 5, that's fine. Just keep delivering a solid, honest product like you have been, and I will walk towards the end of the earth to continue watching this show. And with that, I am going to get out of here, and I'm going to go and head over to a friend's house, and we are going to watch Westworld on the giant, big, fuck-off size TV that he has. So I hope you all enjoy it. I'm looking forward to hear what you guys have to say about this episode, or excuse me, about the final episode. I am sure there's going to be a lot of OMFGs that are going to be going out there, or Zomagas. But either way, I know it's going to guaranteed to probably shock and amaze, at least on some level, and I really don't think it's going to be disappointing. All right, and with that, everybody, I think you're going to wake up in 3, 2,